Good morning, Dan and Amy. And the Trump impeachment trial 2.0 begins next week. Get some legal perspective on that from somebody who knows one of the gentlemen retained to be part of Trump's defense team, Bruce Castor, who is an attorney from Pennsylvania. We're pleased to be joined by George Parry, who's a former federal and state prosecutor. He is a regular contributor to the American Spectator and blogs at knowledgeisgood.net. He also hails from Philadelphia. George, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Dan. Glad to be with you.
Tell us about Bruce Castor and what kind of approach we could expect from him in concert with his colleagues in defense of President Trump.
Well, Bruce Castor made his reputation as the district attorney of Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which is a suburb of Philadelphia. He was a very effective prosecutor, real tough on crime kind of guy. He's a bit of a hammerhead. My friends who've tried cases against him say that he's decent when presenting the facts in a relatively simple, straightforward crime, such as murder or something like that. But he's no huge legal scholar. I don't see that, by the way, as an impediment, as doing an effective job for the president in this upcoming show trial. But that's pretty much my thumbnail sketch of Bruce Castor. He's a tough guy. He's got courage, but he's no great legal mind.
So it'll just be blocking and tackling, which when you're talking about an article of impeachment based on incitement to riot you can just block and tackle to dispatch with that case. And in point of fact, one might even argue that they should rest their case before they open it and just call the question.
Well, it's pretty clear from the vote that Rand Paul forced that you've got 45 Republicans who are ready to say there shouldn't even be a trial because it's unconstitutional to impeach a civilian or someone who's no longer holding office. So you start out with a safety net. But if I was Trump or if I was representing Trump, I should say, I would want to go all out in attacking the article of impeachment that says that Trump lied about how the election was conducted, and that was part of the incitement for the mob to have that incursion on Capitol Hill.
You would raise the issue of election fraud?
Oh yeah. I mean, look, Trump has been unable to get any court in the country to listen to the evidence. You know, everybody says, well, where's the evidence? Where's the evidence? Courts have rejected these claims all over the country. No court has ever adjudicated the issue. They've all taken a dodge. You know, they said, well, you lack standing. You know, it's Tuesday and you should have filed this on a Thursday. I mean, all the usual nonsense that courts use to avoid having to take on difficult cases. So here, thanks to this article of impeachment, Trump has been offered an opportunity to come forward with all of the evidence of fraud. And trust me, there's a ton of evidence of fraud, especially in Pennsylvania. And this is his chance. This is his chance to get it out there. Now, you're not going to have a real judge presiding over this. I mean, the last rumor was it was going to be Patrick Leahy, the Democrat senator from Vermont, who is hardly going to be fair and impartial, and he may rule all of that evidence out of order. But I think Trump and his lawyers need to go right in and hit it head on. This is their chance. This is their opportunity to make their case. And the best defense in any criminal case is a good offense. I've always contended that. That's how I've tried my criminal cases. You go at the other side and you go right for the throat.
But Mr. Parry, you realize that that's the reason why his former lawyers and they parted ways, because they didn't want to, relitigate election fraud. They wanted to concentrate on the charge, which, incitement of violence or incitement to riot.
Yeah, and that's why Trump had to go this far down in the food chain to come up with a former district attorney from Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, to find a lawyer who would be willing to do it. Now, whether Castor will actually go ahead and do it or not, I don't know. I understand that David Schoen, the lawyer from Georgia who is co-counsel, has said that he's going to concentrate only on the constitutional issue of whether or not you can impeach someone who is
Private
no
citizen.
longer in office. Yeah, but and that's a very important constitutional issue. I think we already know the answer to that, but you don't know until the final vote's taken. But the other part of this, it seems to me, is there is a good factual case to be made that the election was stolen. And this, it is certainly relevant since they've charged Trump with lying about how the election was conducted. It seems to me it's entirely relevant to attack on that front. And I hope Castor lives up to his hammerhead reputation around here, that he's going to take that on and he's just going to be like a bull and charge right in there and let the chips fall where they may.
But as a legal matter, if you knew you had the votes on the jury to acquit, why would you risk anything other than calling the question? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I have the votes I need. You have 45 Republican senators. They don't believe it's constitutional per Rand Paul's straw vote, as you mentioned. Why would I go down any of these roads that could anger, and depending on how well it's presented, even push some Republicans to change their position when I have the votes I need?
Well, I don't think, look, what do I know about the U.S. Senate? I stay away from it as every chance I get. But my sense is that the evidence presented, the arguments presented, aren't going to add up to anything. This is a political show trial.
Well, I understand.
The lines have already been drawn. Yeah, the lines have already been drawn. And, you know, the Republicans need to take into account that if they go along with convicting Trump, the Republican Party is going to get split in two, because a large part of the Republican Party are now committed Trumpsters. So that's part of the political calculation.
Yeah.
From the standpoint of the legal, careful counsel approach, you're correct. If you can win it on a straightforward issue where you already know the outcome, fine, go ahead and do that.
Yeah, the political. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the political calculation is complicated. I mean, you have Lindsey Graham, unsurprisingly, you know, but I think representative of other Republican senators who just want to get past this. You know, sort of trying to intimidate Democrats from calling witnesses. If you guys start calling witnesses, we're calling the FBI to testify. That sort of thing. That tells me they just wanted to peacefully go away. Everybody vote their shares to satisfy their bases, and let's get back to the chummy business of being a member of the U.S. Senate. That's where I think the critical mass is right now.
Well, I think you have much better political instincts than I have. I've achieved the great glory of being a retired lawyer without two nickels to rub together because of my political instincts.
I appreciate that. You know, there's a documentary by this songwriter. It just reminded me that, because that's probably where I'm going to end up too, George. So this documentary really spoke to me. It's a documentary about a Nashville songwriter named Griffin House, who was supposed to be like the next huge star. He's a singer-songwriter, and it's called Rising Star. I recommend it. And he's been 15 years on the trail, and he makes a living, and he does fine. He's got a nice family, but he hasn't obviously been the breakout star because most people don't know his name. And he just made this comment about not achieving his advanced billing, at least to this point. He said, you can't control how the world receives you. And so you just got to provide something authentic, and then however the world receives you. So that's how I'm going to characterize what you did in your legal career too.
Yeah, well, all I can say is it was a very interesting career, and leave it at that. I was in prosecution far too long, and I knew what I was doing at the time. You're not going to get rich being a prosecutor, but I was happy to do it, and I'm glad I did it. And now my wife just sit and shiver in the darkness and stare at each other. So it's real.
It sounds like you're enjoying your golden years. Yes, it's wonderful.
Yeah, right.
I wanted to ask you about another legal matter, and this is the news out yesterday that it doesn't appear, at least at this point, that there'll be charges filed against that police officer who shot and killed Ashley Babbitt the day of the rioting at the Capitol. The police investigators made an initial determination charges against the officer are not warranted. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Washington, D.C., leading the broader investigation. The point here is important that with respect to bringing federal charges against an officer, you have to prove not only that the officer used excessive force, but that the officer willfully violated Ashley Babbitt, and in this case, her constitutional rights, and that's just a difficult case to make out. But I wanted to get your reaction to that initial determination.
Well, the constitutional rights overlay really doesn't affect the determination here. I know that's part of the equation, but if you just break it down into its factual component parts, the argument can be made that the officer who fired thought that the mob was about to come into the whatever chamber it was, the House or the Senate, I don't know which chamber, and create mayhem, and he fired a shot. Clearly, he shouldn't have done that, but under the circumstances, the use of force was justified. But, and this is a big but, the real calculation here is: are you going to charge a member of the Capitol Police Department when you've got the entire U.S. Congress, Republican and Democrat, behind the Capitol Police
right,
and singing their praises? That's what's really going on here. And nobody in the U.S. Attorney's Office in D.C., which is entirely dependent on having the goodwill of Congress, is going to do anything to upset that narrative. So that's really what was at work here.
Well, and to your point, I mean, you have Republican Congressman from Oklahoma, Markwayne Mullin, saying, I believe they were wanting to hurt us. My thought was, how are we going to handle this one? He said, I believe that the lieutenant saved some people's lives that day. So, I mean, if you were to charge that officer, you put Representative Mullin on the stand, there goes your case. You can't make out the case.
Yeah. Plus, you're going to wind up in front of a federal judge who owes his seat on the bench to members of Congress, and you're going to wind up with a D.C. jury, which they know how to read the tea leaves. I mean, ordinarily they're anti-police, but in this case, I think they would make an exception. It was clear to me from the second that happened that nothing was going to happen to that police officer.
George Parry, former federal and state prosecutor, regular contributor to the American Spectator, blogs at knowledgeisgood.net. George, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Okay, so glad to be with you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
If you haven't tried Blinds.com, now is the time to freshen up your favorite rooms with new window treatments at a great low price. They're offering huge savings on everything site-wide, including blinds, shades, interior shutters, and even outdoor shades. Whether you're looking for blackout shades or that perfect low, choose from a beautiful array of options customized just for your home. Trust me when I say it's a breeze to order online with free shipping and a guaranteed perfect fit, whether you DIY or have them handle the install from start to finish. My listeners can take advantage of Blinds.com's incredible savings today. Why wait to turn your dream home into a reality? Don't wait to save. Give yourself a brand new view to enjoy all year long. Visit Blinds.com right now and save big on everything from shades, blinds, interior shutters, and more. Rules and restrictions may apply.
You've probably